This is Gary Butterfield.
This is Cole Ross.
You're listening to Best Quality Vacuum, our Breaking Bad-averse, Vince Gilliverse podcast.
And this week we are talking about the episode And the Bags in the River. Kind of a part 2 for episode 2 there, And the Cat's in the Bag. Line from The Sweet Smell of Success.
You know, I also feel like it's a saying.
Oh, yeah.
At least cats in the bag is a saying. And then, like, no, that cat is definitely fucked. As like a writer. The cat will drown.
Yes. Yeah. I just, when I was making notes for this, we got to get kind of like at least a little bit more comfortable with saying the word bitch.
Yeah.
I've excised that from my library.
But if I put myself in the Jesse mindset.
Yeah.
So, you gotta go Jesse Grindset for it. I don't know anything about The Sweet Smell of Success. Is it one of those 50s movies about drowning cats?
It was a craze. It was a real craze.
Clark Gable,
people had hands on hard bodies. Stuffing yourself into phone booths was a prank.
Sure.
Flagpole sitting. They attempted a comeback, but so many people got skewered. And then just a good old kitty cat drowning. Get that pussy wet.
Give me the cat, Ricky. Lucy, why you want? I'm not going to do the accent. Why you want to drown this cat, this gato, Lucy? Lucy, why would you like to drown the gato? I'm Desi Arnaz.
Hello, hi.
Hello,
I'm
Lucy.
Desi Arnaz.
This is my wife, Lucy. Hello, Arnaz.
I'm the band leader at a prominent New York club. I'm Desi Arnaz.
I'm Desi Arnaz. Welcome. This is my shrill wife, Lucy. She enjoys screaming and drowning cats. And fucking up at factories.
I'm to be led to believe that Ethel Mertz is not an absolute smoke show.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Probably without all the 50s makeup and stuff. She's probably all super scarred and everything. Looks like Freddy Krueger under there. Anywho, we got Breaking Bad to talk about, but I can talk about 50s for my what I understand about the 50s like all day. This episode was written by Vince Gilligan, directed by Adam Bernstein, and aired on February 10th, 2008.
Yeah. And this concerns itself almost entirely with Walt trying to decide what to do with Crazy 8, that guy that he has chained up in Jesse's basement.
Yeah. It's a very small scale episode, which and to its benefit.
Yes.
We're introduced to a couple of important characters in this episode. First off is Gretchen. This is a former colleague and love interest of Walt from back in the day, the Gray Matter days. And also we're introduced to Wendy.
Everyone knows it's Wendy. Yeah,
everyone knows it's Wendy. Even though that song is windy,
everyone knows
it's windy.
Yes.
And at one point in this episode, Hank says, "How much for a windy, Wendy?" Not an expression.
Nope, not at all.
No one thinks a blowjob is a windy.
I have always heard that as how much for a Wendy, but I watched it with the captions this time. It says windy, so
you can hear it if you listen. Maybe it was just me reading it and hearing it at the same time, but it did sound like he said it differently.
Yeah, maybe I can get there with the adjective to blow, but
sure. I mean, yeah, Hank. But yeah, this is a meth addicted sex worker in the show who turns out to be, instrumental to several scenes, like a minor character, but recurring.
I was surprised at how few episodes she actually factors into. She's very memorable.
Yeah, very memorable.
Yeah. She loves her root beer is the thing.
She loves soda. It's that Kurt Vonnegut advice of making your character want something, even if it's a glass of water. And Vince Gilligan went scrambled eggs for Walt Jr., root beer for Wendy. This features in this episode the earliest scene in the chronology we're going to get, back when Walt had all his hair and looked like a shaggy sex god back in the Gray Matter days between 1985 and 1989.
Yes.
Eventually the series will go even further back, Better Call Saul, with things from Jimmy and Kim's childhood.
Yes.
Back in the day.
Yeah, back in the old 60s. Back to Wendy though. there is famous trivia for this. They shoot at this very rough looking motel in Albuquerque. Like, it's very believable as a place where, down and out people would be doing stuff that the law doesn't smile on, let's say, euphemistically. And they were there shooting, and Wendy's whole thing here, the makeup and prosthetics and stuff, was so convincing that somebody walked up and attempted to solicit her services.
Yep.
Yeah.
Method acting. Whenever that happened to John Lovitz, you'd go, acting! And then you'd find out he wasn't really a prostitute. He was John Lovitz.
It's always John Lovitz.
John Lovitz. This is a digression. I know we've been digression heavy already.
That's all right.
Me and Liv were driving down. So there's a street in Portland of ill repute. It's not, most of it is fine, but it has like the reputation as the bad street, and it's Southeast 82nd.
Okay.
And there's a section of that, like, Portland's very nice. It's not, it's certainly not the Antifa training grounds that your uncle thinks it is, but it's also not like a crime-ridden cesspit or anything.
Yeah.
But there are sections of this street that are pretty Thunderdome, like, including sex work going on there. And we were driving down that to get somewhere. It's also a major commercial thoroughfare. And we saw somebody who was certainly a sex worker, or at the very, like, looked like they were dressed up like a Halloween costume.
Okay.
Of a sex worker. And there was a truck in front of us, and the truck at the very last minute, like, screeched and turned to pull off into the side street where this person was.
Cool.
It was just very charming. Like, this kid was like,
good
I wasn't planning to, but whoa! Like, I imagine him Tex Averying in the truck. Like,
it's incredibly dangerous in a truck. I mean, your windshield's right there. Your eyes are going to get stuck to it.
It was also dangerous because we were following behind him. He slammed on the brakes to do this. So he very well could have been, hit by our car. He was like, oh shit. Like, it was a very confusing couple of seconds, but it was one of the more cartoony things that's ever happened to me in real life. Like,
yeah.
A literal, like, get a load of that, like, it was very funny.
Here's to living in the moment.
Yeah. Seize the day, good on you, Trucules. But yeah, so the that is what this made me think of.
Nice.
Let's get into it.
Let's do. We open with kind of like a montage of sorts that is intercutting. So it is two scenes, one in the present and then one is a flashback. We have Walt and Jesse cleaning up the gunk that used to be Emilio. We get those transparency shots that the show is known for, revealing the scene through somebody wiping something off of a surface, and this
finally
is
a show that gives us the perspective of of gunk.
It's some real good eat shit. I love it.
Yeah, it is great. It's just very it's funny, the idea of it just being, God, I can't wait to see what the floor sees. So this scene is bisected. I don't want to just go back and forth here. Like, I want to talk about each individual part, because I think one is, like, they connect, and this is a controversial scene when the callback for this, and it's we're talking about. So, like, this first part where Walt and Jesse are cleaning up the gunk, I think is pretty brilliant. One of the things that the show does is, like, hey, all this stuff is profoundly unsexy and awful.
Yes.
Like, this like, crime should be gross and boring and difficult. All of these things, like, it's nasty and it's work, and it's like, this sucks. And that's great. Showing them. This is interspersed with a flashback with Walt back in the 80s, talking to a woman. This is our introduction to Gretchen, breaking down the composition of the human body, element by element, adding all this up. And they're kind of, this is well acted. They're kind of flirty. It's like, what about calcium? What about he's doing science flirts, and it doesn't add up to 100%.
Right.
And he's like, oh, it seems like something's missing. And as this is happening, we're seeing, so it's the dichotomy of, like, this is what a body is abstractly. This is what a body is mechanically.
Yeah. It is broken down in two different ways, here on a whiteboard between two people making a connection, and here literally dissolved and having, seeped through, fallen through.
Yes. And then they're like, where's the rest? Something's missing. It doesn't add to 100%. This is going to come back later.
Yeah.
And it's so if it just stopped here, this is great, I think.
The callback, it peeled the paint from my walls. I had to call a guy.
The callback makes you move. It's not, there's another, first season's weird. We talked about it being sloppier. And one of the things that I think Breaking Bad did in the first 2 seasons that it more or less stops doing is flirting with this idea of being a lot more metaphysical.
Yeah.
The second season is basically Magnolia, right? Like, you will have these kind of trippy connections to people you don't know. Like you're going to inadvertently cause this plane crash.
Yeah.
That kind of theming goes away in the show. It gets a little bit more nuts and bolts in terms of how it's choosing to do its themes, mostly for the better. Yeah. And this is about as far as it goes in that kind of woo-woo place.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, this is specifically the callback, like right here when he says there's got to be something more to being human than that. And then it's just Walt dumping a bucket of Emilio into the toilet and flushing.
That's like, perfect.
It's so good.
Like there is nothing, this idea that like in the daytime, in this kind of idealized safe scenario, you can talk about that and you can kind of like philosophize. And then in real life, we're all slime. We can all just be dissolved down to goop.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what we are, that's great. And they really should have just left it.
Yeah.
This is so good. And it gets so dumb.
They didn't have to take it into 21 grams territory.
Is this going to be on the murder? It's the same kind of shit. Like they're finding their voice, and I forgive them because this is a really good episode of the show.
Right.
It just has one of the worst scenes in the show.
I could see someone being worried based on this. Like if they were just getting into the show, like, all right, how schlocky is this going to be?
Yeah. It's also worth, this is 2008 as well. We were earlier in our like heightening TV standards than we are now. So maybe it was just kind of like, okay, I don't remember it standing out as much on the first view as it did on subsequent views.
Yes.
People interpreting the show bad. If you go on wikis and stuff, just another Wikipedia said it worst segment, according to the wiki, the toilet that Emilio gets flushed down could be seen as a metaphorical river that the bag's in. And that made me very mad reading that.
Speaking of souls, mine just tried to leave my body out of my ears.
It's a dumb take.
Yeah.
But this beginning part, contrasting these two things, I think is A+. They just sell past the close, and it wraps around to an F when the callback comes back.
Yep. Oh my gosh. So the episode proper begins. We get our title sequence, and we have Skylar and Walt Jr. painting the nursery, something Walt was supposed to do, while Marie watches and kind of criticizes.
Yeah, and doesn't help for no real good reason.
Yeah.
She's complaining about her shoes. Here, foreshadowing the most important subplot in the history of Breaking Bad. Does not like this as they're doing this. Walt Jr. gets a call, has to go talk to his friend Lewis. He says yo to Lewis on the phone. Skylar does not like.
Yeah, please don't say yo. You don't know how much I hate that.
due to Jesse. Marie, hey, you missed a spot. And Skylar says, like, hey, I'm working on a short story. I got this character who's kind of a fun stoner. You used to smoke pot in college, right? You'd smoked pot all the time, right? What was it like? Did it affect your mood? And Marie says, not in the way that Skylar's expecting, but Marie sees through.
Yeah.
Skylar's a shitty liar because she's crazy innocent. She's very naive in the beginning of the show.
It takes a lot of exposure to Walt for her to degrade to develop that skill. I love Marie's initial response to that. She says, "It made me more serious."
Yeah, which is very funny. Yeah. But she sees through that she's asking, and she jumps to the conclusion that Walt Jr. is getting pot from this Lewis character.
Which is not a bad conclusion for somebody to jump to. Yeah.
Yeah. Slightly more worldly, than Skylar.
Yes.
At this point.
Yeah. So Walt and Jesse are in Jesse's driveway. Fortunately, this is partially hidden by the walls. They are standing in kiddie pools and spraying each other down because they are covered in blood goop.
Yeah, just in acidy blood goop.
Yeah, straight up Pulp Fiction stuff.
Awful shit. And Jesse self-medicates.
Yeah.
After this, like, he's going to talk about, like, later he's going to kind of explode about this, but like he does not feel comfortable in his house anymore.
Right.
This was an exceedingly haunting thing that happened.
Right.
In his house, not to mention the guy chained up in the basement. So seeking relief, he goes upstairs, pulls out the bag of meth that they had to sell and smokes some of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Walt takes care of Crazy 8.
It takes care of his shit bucket.
Yeah. And his piss bucket. Takes it, empties it out, does a little comedy Febreze spray,
And he tries to leave, like he's not making eye contact with Crazy 8, he's just down there doing the task and getting out of there. Crazy 8 calls him down saying, like, hey, I wouldn't do this to my worst enemy. I'm not just going to drop dead. Like, if you think that's going to happen, like, this is not going to be easy, trying to kind of get under his skin to engage somehow. Right.
Which is successful. That's the heart of this episode.
Yes.
Is him doing that. And that's classic shit that, like, using his name, humanizing him and stuff. That's an obvious truth. But I remember first learning about that when I saw Silence of the Lambs when I was 12. They talk about that. And I was like, oh, that does make sense.
Yeah.
I'm watching Silence of the Lambs at 12.
It's everybody's favorite sound. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
He stops when he, as Walt's leaving, he goes, hey, Walt, and he comes back. How did you know my name? And Jesse's like, Crazy 8 says, Jesse told us, along with all kinds of other details. He has a big mouth. Now, this is Crazy 8 withholding information. He's kind of implying a little bit that Jesse just, like, told him.
Yes.
It's probably pretty likely that Jesse told him when they were, like, gunpoint driving him to the site.
Yeah.
It wasn't like there was a lot of duress that Crazy 8 and Emilio performed on Jesse and Walt that I think ameliorates a lot of these situations that the characters either willfully or unwillfully, like, ignore.
Yes.
And I think this is Crazy 8 specifically being very canny and leaving out that detail. Like,
oh, yeah,
he doesn't have a big mouth. You fucking gun walked him to the desert.
Yeah.
He'd tell you anything because he didn't want to get shot in the face.
But it's a smart strategy. You want to, if you're outnumbered, you want to drive a wedge between the two people who are on this side against you. Right.
Yeah. Crazy 8's a smart dude.
Yes.
So Walt, hears this and he goes upstairs to confront Jesse. Kicks in the bathroom. Jesse said, I'm just trying to pinch one off, which I've always hated that expression. It's gross.
Yep.
He eventually breaks in, jokes on him if Jesse was actually taking a shit, slaps the pipe out of his hand and goes to flush the bag of meth. That's worth $40,000. It's worth nothing if you smoke it.
Yes. Jesse manages to save it by grabbing the bag out of the toilet and then throwing it out the window. And this starts a big scramble. I like the physical comedy of this section or in this episode. Generally, when they do physical comedy, it's really good.
Yeah, this is a silly part for how serious this episode is.
Yeah, but they're both scrambling to get outside and go grab it. And Walt breaks down in a coughing fit on the stairs. This lets Jesse kind of get a big head start on him.
Yep. Jesse gets in the car and Walt yanks him out. Walt can overpower Jesse, but Jesse, confronts him and, appeals to him. It's like, basically, you haven't done your coin flip thing. You haven't honored the flip that we had a coin flip. Again, foreshadowing one of the things about Jesse comes up really big in El Camino. But, your word is your bond. Like, Jesse is a relatively honorable person.
Yeah.
For being a shithead about this. I had to go do this. What about me? I can't live here anymore without thinking about this big pile of slime. We had to clean up. Walt says, well, that's because you didn't follow my instructions, which is true. And then Jesse responds, yeah, well, hail Hitler, bitch. Like, you're just trying to control everything. That's not really accurate either, but he's right about Walt putting off the coin.
Yeah, you gotta deal with this. And then
we had a coin flip. Like, this is the coin is sacred. Like, he literally says, like,
he says the coin flip is sacred. Yeah,
yeah. We had an agreement. This is bullshit. He's right.
The terms don't change. Yeah,
yeah. Marie is out shopping for heels, being rude to a rude clerk, while Hank somehow is able to use the phone while perps are attempting to escape, like he's playing Tapper.
It's got these plates spinning, and by plates I mean a guy named Doug.
Yeah. Hank, it just really feels like Hank, voicemail hasn't come to Albuquerque at this point.
the rollout was slow.
Yeah.
But the guy tries to get away. He throws him back onto the ground. It's kind of like a time and place. I think Marie would understand.
I would think so too. But Marie, again, is naive because it takes a while for the show to start writing its female characters well, I think.
Yes.
And that comes up a few times in this episode.
Yeah. Marie's calling him, or they're talking, making an appeal to Hank, saying, "Hey, you need to talk to Walt Jr. Just say like, I think he's smoking pot. Can you show him like some autopsy pictures or something?"
Very funny. Yeah. He's like, no, nobody ever died of pot, but he doesn't like that Walt Jr. is doing that either.
Right.
But he's uncomfortable because one of the themes of this show, or one of the things it examines, is masculinity and the role of like a father or a family. A man provides for his family is the trump card that Gus uses to destroy Walt's life later. One of the many times he could possibly get out.
Right.
A man, and that's why Walt has this pride. It's why all this shit is happening. Pride fucking with people. And Hank recognizes it. He's like, hey, Walt should do this. He's his dad. Like this would be overstepping a boundary.
Yes.
I would be jumping the chain of command to do this.
Yeah. But Marie, gets him to agree to do it. And then in phone call ends, she puts these heels on, not wearing the little footies.
She steals them.
And then walks out with them and puts her nurse's shoes on the shelf.
Yeah.
So
she loves to steal. It doesn't go anywhere.
It comes back briefly in season 4.
It comes back, but it's not good. It's not, it's not like very useful. It feels like it came back. No, I know. It just it feels like oh yeah, shit. We should probably do something with that.
It is the most probably bizarre needle drop for one of the best songs that they use in the series.
It's the what it makes me think of is, I think when you read about the writing of the show and you read about Vince Gilligan and how he allows things to organically evolve, I can imagine this being like, I imagine a metaphor of somebody going out to a field and throwing a handful of seeds.
Yeah.
And maybe they were doing this because they were trying to be open to what the show was telling them, and maybe they thought this would work out.
Yeah.
Like this might be important. This might cause some epiphany moment later. And it's only in the cold, harsh, like Monday morning quarterbacking that we can be like, this is bullshit.
Yeah. I could see it trying to do a Requiem for a Dream thing, except instead of being about addiction, saying like, here's like a broad spectrum of what happens to people when they compromise morally, Yeah, because so it's just like, oh yeah, there's somebody who drinks too much coffee and has pep pills, along with some, Jared Leto losing his arm. Right?
Yeah, yeah. Can you imagine? It's also kind of early on where it feels a little bit like all of the characters were going to have plots that did not relate to Walt.
Yes.
This is a plot that doesn't relate to Walt, and those eventually get excised.
You're right.
I think that the show realizes that, like, no, we have to spend our time really wisely as this character study there. And ultimately, like, again, I think the show is like much better for it. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on a subplot that didn't really go anywhere. And it's one of the things that I love Better Call Saul very much. One of the reasons why I'm hesitant when people rush to be like, oh, it's much better than Breaking Bad, is that it is less focused.
Right. It is splitting time. Yeah.
It's splitting time because of being a prequel, because it has to do cartel stuff as well, which I like, but it doesn't have that everything leads to this one character and forges this one villain. Basically. And this is anything that the show does where it's not leading towards that or affecting it ends up feeling a little weird.
Yes. Especially in hindsight, looking at this, little scene in a vacuum, or just in relation to everything that we have seen in the series so far up through this episode, this is actually a pretty good way to introduce Marie's shoplifting, I think. Because she didn't like her shoes. We saw that before. This plausibly could have just been to spite that clerk who was being a dick to her, right?
Yeah. But she wants the shoes as well.
Well, of course.
Yeah. And also it's her being such a control freak and critical of Skylar, while also having this, this specific drawback.
Yes.
We cut over to Hank, who has driven Walt out to the Crossroads motel, the Crystal Castle, or Crystal Palace.
Crystal Castle's an arcade game.
Yeah, no, to play Crystal Castles. You like smoking pot? Soon you're gonna like isometric video games. You like controlling little bears picking up back pellets. Fuck.
They call it going Cubert. It's when everything you say sounds like punctuation.
You're gonna go Cubert on me, kid. Next, you're gonna be magician lording it up. But the Crystal Palace here, this motel that's gonna be a recurring area. And this is a scene that is interesting in hindsight. In 2008, and when I was less advanced in my becoming a better person journey, before I kind of had a better attitude towards sex workers, this scene worked better for me because this is a comedy scene.
Yes,
that's the cadence of it. Now that I have a little bit more sympathy for Wendy and also think like Hank's being a huge dick. It feels a little bit different. Like there's still very funny bits. I really like how Walt Jr. comports himself in this.
I thought we were going to Cold Stone Creamery.
He's like, there's a pit stop.
He's using this, down and out woman as a sideshow. Yeah.
And it's gross. Hank starts saying, talking about gateway drug. Like everyone who's here at the meth hotel started with pot. Eventually he calls Wendy over, who's getting a root beer, over to Walt Jr.'s window and says like how much she charges for a Wendy, or Wendy. And she says like, I don't want to do no kid, like she's pushing back. Like this is, what's going on with you? Are you, disabled or anything? Yeah. And Hank covers, I like this moment a lot. Hank's like, he's, a quarterback. He broke his leg, got arm like a fucking howitzer. I really like this. Protect, like trying to use his shitty masculinity to like protect somebody who he loves. Yeah. From being emasculated. It's a cool contrast with Walt beating the shit out of that teen. In the first episode. Walt abusing that child.
The child was taller than him.
He was taller than him. I guess that should be he must be this tall to beat.
I don't actually know what my opinion is on that.
What if instead of age, we just had height? I'm not stoned.
That's why they called in those drone strikes when Lonnie blew up the kid.
Day 73 at the siege outside Kareem Abdul. Anyway, he says, show us, are you shooting up or are you smoking? She doesn't answer, so he's like, show us your teeth. And she's got meth mouth. And eventually, she's being a smartass, rightly not answering Hank, and Hank sends her away.
And Hank's like, so like, what do you think? Is this getting through? And all Walt Jr. gonna say is that was cool.
It's very funny. It's a real classic comedy situation. I like the way this episode is balanced, like the levity with the absolute like heartbreaking shit that's going to happen later. And this ties in because Wendy goes up to her room where Jesse is watching out the window. He's paranoid. He's been doing meth again. He thinks that they were asking about him.
Well, he sees that fucking black SUV.
And he's been party to murder. He's cleaned up a body. Then they have chair sex because Jesse likes older women.
So we get Walt. He's sitting on the toilet, pants down, and he is making a pro and con list about whether about specifically the pros and cons of letting Crazy 8 live. He's trying to convince himself, right? He has a bunch of things on the pro side, like, oh, it'd be immoral, you wouldn't be able to live with yourself, it's the right thing to do.
Judeo-Christian values, just as a line. It's very funny.
And on the con side, he only has one thing, but it's a hell of one. He will kill you and your whole family.
This is also a comedy beat to me. I remember the music is serious about this, but I can't.
I can't. It's
making
just
a pro
so
and con list about this is very silly.
it's so dorky. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really dorky, and also like once you wrote down he will kill you and your whole family, it seems like you'd stop making the list.
Oh yeah, decisions
You know?
made. Yeah.
Like what's going to balance that other than like he will bring your family back to life, or whatever. So it's been all day. He's been procrastinating all day. So he calls Skylar and lies about being at the car wash. I love how Bryan Cranston lies in this show. He's really good at it.
Yes.
Like it's really good acting of sounding like vaguely plausible, fakey dad.
Yeah. I just lost track of time and Bogdan kept me late or whatever. He says, you're at the car wash. Yes. Well, I seriously doubt that since you quit 2 weeks ago. She
called and
drops
Bogdan gave her an earful.
Yeah.
Walt says, listen, can we, talk about this when I get home? And she's like, don't come home.
Yeah.
At this point, she obviously knows something's up, probably suspecting he's cheating.
Yes.
That's going to get, confirmed for her later. But he's one of the things I was trying to think about in this show is that one of the popular narratives that comes out about Breaking Bad is that like, Walt was obviously the person he was going to turn into from the start. And in this rewatch, I've been kind of trying to push against that a little bit because I don't think it's true.
Right.
He tries to kill himself in the first episode to get out of this. And here, like, this is a shitty thing he's doing. He can't say, I got to kill this guy. And this is an immensely stressful situation. Like in retrospect, with everything that happens in the series, it's very easy to be a viewer and say like, oh, this is nothing.
Yeah.
But if you can access any empathy for this admittedly very bad character, very morally bad character.
Yeah.
You can understand like, this is fucking tough. I couldn't do it. I'm not going to fucking just stab a dude.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when you haven't before, like indirectly through gas under duress to save your life
with a gun to your head, but just cold-blooded murder a helpless person. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
So I get it. Like it's not, it feels very genuine to me.
Oh, another piece of evidence against he was always like this kind of guy. He was going to flush that meth down the toilet.
Yeah. He is protective of his family. He is more mad that Jesse did this thing that endangers his family, that complicates this decision.
Yeah.
That he's going to have, because this guy not knowing who he was or where he worked or who his family was would make letting him go, more attractive, even though, still bad.
Well, yeah. Like,
but like
it's
now
town.
he really can't. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's, now he really can't. So I buy the stress.
Yes.
I buy that this is still plate spinning Walt, who is trying to balance some altruistic goals with his pride.
Yeah.
Pre-evil Walt to me.
Yeah. It's also just a more interesting story if the events are a series of one-way doors. Yes. He hits these points of no return, right?
What I'm not saying you have to hand it to Walt. Right. Like
right.
By any means. Like, yeah, even here, he's not a good person, but I think there's effort there.
Yeah.
I think that when people, and I'm saying that I'm not calling anyone out, this is a discourse thing. Like I've read think pieces about this. It's a pretty common opinion I see when people started rewatching this. Like this is, the preponderance of Breaking Bad gifts on my timeline makes me think that a lot of people are doing Breaking Bad rewatches in the wake of Better Call Saul, which is great. But just, I see this opinion all the time. Like, oh God, we were so stupid for believing he was anything other than the worst person on earth. I don't think so. I think that's benefit of hindsight stuff. And I think the show is trying to tell a less steep slope than that, significantly less.
Yeah. He had the flaws built in that would predispose him to make the decisions that he made ultimately and to get himself into those situations.
Yeah. But you're not going to precog him for making the decisions in advance.
Right.
You're not going to minority report Walter White.
Yeah. I don't, go up and two-tap him in front of his class to make an example.
Yeah. You can go back in time and kill Walter White when he's a kid. So Walt hears Crazy 8 yell from the basement. He's hungry. So he makes him another sandwich. And when he takes the sandwich down, he has a coughing fit, passes out, and claps his face first on the ground, smashing the plate. Yeah.
And, fade to black. And Walt wakes up about 10 or 15 minutes later. And Crazy 8 standing up now. Again, is still motorcycle locked to that post there. And Crazy 8 says, was that gas shit? Did you get that too? And Walt kind of figures, okay, well,
if there's anyone safe to tell.
yeah, if there's
Yeah.
anybody safe to tell, it's this guy who's going to be gone soon. Just like, no, I've got lung cancer.
He gathers up the pieces of the plate, takes them upstairs, throws them in the trash, makes another sandwich, and then this is where he grabs beers too, right? Like I love this moment where he's in the fridge.
Yes, the beers are. No, I think it's when he goes back down. It's later. It is just. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not long from here.
Right.
He makes him a sandwich. He's like, there's no poison in the sandwich, and he's like, that that'd be the way to do it. Immediately, or Crazy 8 says,
yeah,
you're a chemist and everything. Walt grabs the 6-pack. They're going to enjoy a beer. And there's another really good moment about this where Crazy 8, who's real smart, is recognizing that Walt's not an idiot too.
Right.
Where he's like, what's your name? And his first response is like, that's not going to make this easier for you.
Right. Yeah. Like you making me more human is not working in your favor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're being an idiot, and Walt's fine with it.
And I mean, we're without spoilers. While Walt was passed out, Domingo, Crazy 8. We're just gonna call him Crazy 8. He grabbed a shard of the plate to use as a weapon, because Walt inadvertently gave it to him. So he knows that he has this kind of ace in the hole, or up
Crazy
his
8 knows, not Walt knows.
Yes, yeah.
So that is why Crazy 8 is being kind of like, really, this is his chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just like, okay, like if I have any way to get you closer to me, here we go. Yeah. But Walt's not going to call him Crazy 8. He's trying to level with this guy. He's not going to call him by his AOL screen name.
Yeah,
just
69. Yeah,
yeah. He's Domingo. Oh, that's Sunday. Okay, yes. He's going to call him that.
And this is where Crazy 8's like, what are you going to do? And he's, Walt admits, like, I want to let you go. I'm looking for any good reason to do it. You have to convince me.
Yes.
Like, he literally says, like, this is not something I'm going to come to on my own. Help. Like, it's a really human moment. Like, help me do this thing.
Yeah.
Like, you are obviously in more physical, duress than I am, but I am in this incredibly fraught emotional space.
Yes.
Right? Help. Crazy 8 says, I guess I would start by saying, I promise that you and your family would be safe, but that anyone in my position would say that. So you have to decide if that's trustworthy.
It's like a fucking Witcher quest.
No, listen, the thing you have to understand, Walt, is I have a brother and he always tells the truth. Now,
I'm not actually diminishing this. I think all of this is very good.
Oh, this is great. Yeah, this is one of the best scenes in the first season.
Oh, yeah. So Walt gets up to leave, figuring, okay, we got nothing here. And Crazy 8, he knows, okay, I need to keep him engaged, to draw him closer, right? Lean in kind of deal.
Yep.
So Crazy 8 starts giving his backstory, figuring this is what Walt, a version of what Walt needs to hear or wants to hear. Says
it needs to keep him there.
Yeah. I'm from here, born and raised in Albuquerque, studied business administration at UNM. I wanted to study music, but my dad said there wasn't a future in that, just giving these details. Right.
Yep. His dad used to own this furniture store in town that had these commercials, and they kind of bond over that.
I love that so much. Like two people who don't know each other from the same place, recalling this jingle, like, oh God, we are from we can't have this much in common.
It's great. I love the him being I love the detail that Domingo's uncle wrote the song and tried to pick up women in bars by singing it. And it's a furniture store jingle. It's very cute. Like really, really, really good specific detail.
Yeah. He acted like you wrote Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, it's very, very good. At this point, I love Walt's like, oh, that's where we bought Walt Jr.'s bassinet. And he goes, well, that's more of a specialty item, but we might have sold you a crib. Like he knows what's going on. Yeah. And he's like, around when was it? He's like, well, if it's after school, I guarantee you I was there. I might have rung you up. Forging this connection. It's true. Like, I don't get the sense that Crazy 8 is lying here.
Right.
He's motivated. It's motivated truth telling. But he's not lying. Like, they really do have this much in common, which ties into, the complexity, the moral complexity of this choice.
And it's so smart what Crazy 8 does, because they're talking about this crib or whatever. Crazy 8's doing like a car salesman thing. The manager's being a real dick about this or whatever. He's saying, oh, my dad probably tried to sell you that extended warranty too, huh? You know, like, oh yeah, he ripped you off. Like, yeah, we know. It's like, oh, I'm on your side in this. It doesn't matter that it was 16 years ago.
Yeah. He's doing how to win friends and influence people shit.
It's so good.
It's really good. It reminds me a lot of, like, him being a business major and stuff reminds me a lot of The Wire. The Wire is a show where drug dealers have the skills that are required for that job recognized. You know, not like they're sweeping the Dealey Awards or whatever, but I mean, like,
you got Stringer Bell. Yeah.
You know, like who goes to business classes and then disseminates that information. Like the idea that you have to be charismatic and know how to read people to do this job, like, and that being a skill is something the show acknowledges.
Yes.
You know, as opposed to what normie America thinks and what, like, say your Hanks think, which is just all these people are fucking idiots. They're the bad guys and they're getting outsmarted. And they're not stupid. It's a mistake to think that people who are your enemy are stupid.
Yeah.
You know?
And up to this point, Crazy 8 has said a couple of times, and he'll say it again, you know, this line of Walt doesn't suit you, Walter.
Yeah, this line of Walt.
this line of work doesn't suit you, Walter. But he says that, and he's demonstrating it right now. Like, if he doesn't recognize that this is being used on him, like, you gotta know, man.
And it's 100% true. Whereas, like, as the show goes on, Walt is bad at this shit.
Yeah,
like, he's good at talking, but it's this desperate kind of, like, leverage based chess talking.
Yes,
that he does. Not, you know, he's not he's not Jimmy. He's not Saul, who is closer to a Domingo,
right?
In terms of let's make a deal businessman.
Well, I mean, it happens literally towards the end of this season. Walt, throughout the entire season, goes all in every time. There's no such thing as a limited hangout with him. Maybe one or two times where he's being crafty, but like he gets what he wants by extending himself, by pushing everything to this completely black or white, somebody's got to die situation, as opposed to, you know, somebody like, you know, Crazy 8 or a Jimmy who is more, you know, crafty and evasive, right? And ultimately more self-preservation minded. Yes.
You know, which makes sense because Walt has no sense of self-preservation because there's no self pretty soon.
Yes.
You know, it's all very good. Like, it is, folks, 3 episodes in, I'm willing to say this is a really good TV show.
It's a pretty good. We're going to keep on doing this podcast. I'm convinced now.
We've made it past the probationary period. We're going to stop right here before all this shit happens in the basement. But we're going to keep going because it's a pretty good TV show.
It is okay. I think. Yeah.
At least, it's no Andor, but it's just beating up on Andor. So, you know, he says at this point, like, hey, you know, crazy the paths we take, huh? Like, at this point, Crazy 8 then switches gears. He's like, hey, does Jesse know you have cancer? And Walt says, you're the only person who knows. And Crazy 8 figures it out. Like, this is why you're cooking meth. You know, it's for money for your family. And he goes, hell, I'll write you a check right now if you let me go. You know, like,
I'll give you what you want. Going above and beyond, just like the immediate, like, okay, are we safe? Like, okay, well, yeah, I've identified this key motivating thing that has brought you into the situation in the first place. Yeah.
Again, motivated truth telling.
Yeah.
Like, he's being manipulative, but it's not. Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't write him a check.
Right.
We'll find out.
He's going to stab him.
Yeah, he's going to write him a blood check. You know, so Walt says, and he's like, I don't know what to do. Like, he's confronting again one of these things that makes me feel like he really does have a soul at this point. Crazy 8 says, yeah, you do. You know, like, he knows he's done it. And Walt goes upstairs to get the key. Kind of slow walks upstairs. He's in the kitchen. He grabs the key. He crushes his beer can, throws in the garbage can. Now, when I had watched this, I knew that there would be a plate shard thing. I was like, oh, that's what I would do if I was. I was Crazy 8.
But seeing Walt figure it out in real time, just like, the show accounted for it. Yes,
it was really good. Me and my ex-wife watched this together, and it was like a really big, you know, those kind of things where you gasp at the same time as another person. And it's not one of those weird flash mobs where everybody gasps and it's timed. It just naturally happens.
Yeah,
it was like a live theater experience at home. You know, when you both were like, oh, you know, it's really good. It feels good.
I'm just like,
yeah.
he's trying to piece this back together. Like he's just like looking again. He desperately wants every single. He goes back. He goes back to see if there's anything he missed in the garbage can. Like he's like no no no. As he notices the big knife shaped shard is there,
puts together the puzzle.
He's still trying to hold on to this water in his bare hands.
Well, because he had an out. Like he had figured it out, and like nothing. This is a true thing for decisions, big and small. Nothing feels better than making a decision.
Oh yeah.
We are not meant to be indecisive and just to sit on the bubble. Like our brains don't like it. I think. And when we go, okay, like this isn't perfect, but I've decided I'm going to do it. Every time I've been at that place in my life, I've felt an immense amount of relief.
Yes.
Like it is better than any drug. Just like, you know what? I can take that off of my like active memory.
Yes.
Now it is such a relief. And he can't. He thought he had not only a way out of this, but a way that kept his hands clean. That would be easier, and no easy answers. Like again, I've mentioned before, Breaking Bad is like a Dungeons and Dragons game with a great DM. Just put your characters through shit, make the worst things happen.
Yeah.
Because that's where drama comes from. That's how you test your characters.
Yeah. He's like, like, why are you doing this? He thought he'd be safe. He thought that Crazy 8 was on the level. And no, that's not how it works. He's realizing how naive he was.
Yeah. There's probably a huge like turning point for his character in terms of him going through one of those doors. Like this probably killed a lot of trust in Walter.
Yeah.
In this kind of web of responsibilities.
Yeah.
So in a weird way, Crazy 8 is partially responsible for bringing down the cartel.
And that
plane,
the big plane full of all those people with both of those planes
killed those teddy bears. Yeah. He comes downstairs, and he's walking slowly, and Crazy 8 is trying to, keep him going.
Yeah.
Doing the right thing, Walter, unlock me, Walter, do it.
The soundtrack here is so good as Walt, is just slow walking, like getting closer, like just the sounds of a basement, the furnace and the pipes and stuff like that, just kind of clanking there, and they're exchanging some questions, just pretext, right? Walt knows something's coming to a head, and Crazy 8 obviously knows what he's planning. And the sounds just get louder and louder. And he says, and Crazy 8 says, unlock me, Walter, as, Walt's behind him. And Walt says, the moment I do, and he's holding the bike lock, you're going to stick me with that piece of broken plate. And then it's
eyeball in his hand, like to, as he's reaching into his pocket.
Yeah.
At this point. And then he pulls the lock there to start choking him. As Crazy 8 kind of mechanically blindly stabs backwards. And Walt, this is a great bit. Walt can't get enough leverage to seal the deal. Like this probably isn't comfortable for Crazy 8, but it's not going to kill him. So Walt has to get his leg in on the action.
Yeah.
Push off the thing, which allows Crazy 8 to stab him in the leg several times until eventually he's able to choke him down. Crazy 8 misses. He's too weak to actually make it, and he collapses.
Yeah. And as Crazy 8 collapses to the floor, and so does Walt. And Walt says, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Like as he is doing that.
Real feeling, real emotional, real emotion about this.
We got two deaths. I'm keeping track.
So next morning, it's showing the sunrise in Jesse's neighborhood. Everything's changed now. He comes home, the house is empty, the basement is empty, the bike lock is sitting on on a counter. Like, shit. Walt called in sick to work, so the principal, which are subplots that don't go anywhere.
Right.
Walt's relationship with his principal subbing for him.
I love this. Because we're going to be watching a very interesting video on carbon. Very important stuff.
I'd watch that carbon video. Hank and Gomer are out at the cook site, brought out there by the fire. They're kind of figuring it out. Hank is like, why is Crazy 8's car still here?
Yeah.
So they're saying it's a trap car. Gomer says, hey, I already searched it. I'm the trap car whisperer. And he finds the secret compartment in the stereo where there's a baggie of meth, but it's very white. It's very clear.
And he says, you know what I'm thinking, Gomi? And Gomez says, yeah, somebody croaked our snitch. Uh-oh.
Yep. Yep. And the second, this is where, the reveal after the first episode, an officer calls Hank over to find the gas mask from the high school.
Yeah.
Walt, having killed somebody, goes to this highway overpass to brood. And we get, again, one of the worst scenes in the show. We go back to that chalkboard scene. You didn't have to do this. It was fine where it was.
Mm-hmm.
Where he says before, like, it just seems like something's missing. And Gretchen goes, "What about the soul?" And you've already done a lot of thematic work with, like, what is a person? Like, that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Are we just the slimes that can be flushed down the toilet? Is there something more there? Yeah. Leave that a question mark, though.
Please.
This is cloying and gross.
It's also incredibly non-scientific.
Yeah, Gretchen is not.
People in that situation would not, and then that would get you laughed out of that room.
Yeah, Walt should have collapsed laughing at her. And that's why he got kicked out of Gray Matter.
He was trying to run game on her, though. So
yeah, it's true. Like, he didn't have post nut clarity. If Walt had post nut clarity during this moment, the show would have been very different. He would have been like, no. Gretchen would be like, all right, I guess you're out. It just I'm not a religious person. I think there's something more to us than just meat, right? Like, I think we personalities, our deeds and feelings and relationships and stuff do form like a gestalt thing.
Yeah, we're the intersection of a bunch of different stuff.
We're not just the slime you can flush down a toilet. But having a character be like, what about the soul? As if they just laid down a Yu-Gi-Oh card, about like gotcha, is just dumb. It's really cloying and cheap. I think it's this season, we're also going to run into the, like, Walt and Skylar first buying the house and being like, nothing bad's going to happen here.
I think that's like a later one. I think that's like maybe season first half of season 5.
Oh, maybe it is that late. It sucks.
Yeah.
There's a couple really cloying scenes that happen in this otherwise very good show.
Yeah.
And this is the probably the season 1 award for most cloying thing, narrowly beating out Is This Going to Be on the Murder?
It's it is nice to have something here that acts as a distinction, because Breaking Bad is not a subtle show. It takes gigantic swings, right? But like to show that, just like, it's not the lack of subtlety that is the thing that makes this good, right? Like, you can be unsubtle in a very bad direction. It's not just big swings. Like, they're big swings and they know when to take them, and which swings are, which directions are worth swinging in. This is, such a bad swing that the bat leaves the hand and flies into the fucking crowd and knocks out 3 kids.
Yeah. This is the swing that killed Whitey Bulger. Like, it's no good. So Walt gets woken up from his reverie and drives home. Skylar's in bed crying. She's been up all night waiting for him. And he says, "Skylar, there's something I have to tell you. We're going to find out." He's going to tell her that he has cancer, but you don't, at least I remember at the show, it felt like it was positioning it to be a little bit ambiguous. About what he was going to, whether he was going to totally come clean.
It's a real Mad Men kind of thing, standing in the hallway in the front door, kind of deal, like, who's going to find out what kind of deal. Yeah. And
the episode, which is great, it just has this one dumb scene in it that, like, stands out real loud.
Oh yeah. I mean, this paired with the previous one is a complete justification for being invested in the series. I think. Yeah.
It's super good. Oh, hello.
Oh,
it looks like somebody's come to my Christmas cabin. Why, look, it's Dean Martin.
Do you need to go get that?
Yeah. No. It's a delivery person.
Okay.
I'll just do it afterwards.
Yeah.
Don't even cut this out. Everyone gets to hear my classic 50s doorbell.
It's a good doorbell.
It's great. Ding dong. Classic.
I mean, I'd like huge ups on this to the actor who played Maximino Arciniega. The actor for Crazy 8. Like, it is, I agree with the other cast. It is a shame that he had to go so soon, because he like just amazing scenes down there in the basement. Like that is a real show stealer kind of deal.
Yeah, he does a great job. And it's a shame that when he comes back in Better Call Saul, his main emotion is scared of Tuco.
Yes.
Which is,
I'm scared of Tuco.
Yeah. They had to show him like, in his early days before he had confidence, but he doesn't get a lot of stuff to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Good shit.
Yeah.
And we're going to be moving into a kind of a different phase here, where the cancer is going to take a little bit more of a forefront, right?
Yeah.
And Walt thinks, okay, this is going to get me out of trouble now. But all of a sudden, he's kind of lost that card to play, and he suddenly is wrapped up in more.
Well, it's a card to play too, but it's also true.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're talking it's very similar to the Crazy 8 stuff. Walt talking about his cancer stuff, that is the factor for all this shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not just using it as an excuse,
right?
It's motivated truth telling.
Yes,
which is very different than being manipulative or lying, I think.
Yeah. Yep. So, but yeah, for that we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Thanks everybody. We appreciate you. Ratings, reviews on Apple Podcasts or Podcast Addict. You can support the show by going to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all the nice things you can do.
And tell your friends, if you know people who are doing rewatches and you like the show so far, let them know about us.
And until next time, get me that filter.
That filter? Oh, you mean for Hoover Max Extract Pressure Pro 60?
Yep.
All right.
I want that filter.
Okay.
Hey man,
I'm gonna see if I got it.
Give me a nice filter. Get on an aeroplane and give me that filter.
That's a deeper cut that I know for filter.
So. They only have 2 songs. That was the second one.